Ever since the middle 1960s, when black people in the United States engaged in revolt to dramatize their needs, their wants, their desires, and their hopes, things have been relatively quiet. Now, 1975, there are no riots, there are very few disturbances, nothing you could really call civil unrest. But black people in the United States and in Montgomery, Alabama are restive. They are disillusioned with the lot they've been handed, some of it by the business establishment, some of it by government. Today, our subject on this segment of Composite is going to be benign neglect. Our guest is Joe Reed, who is Associate Executive Secretary of the Alabama Education Association and who is Chairman of the Alabama Democratic Conference. Joe, what would you describe as the major issues that lead you to believe that you're being neglected?
I frankly think that the major issue is economic, primarily unemployment. We're concerned that the black community has been neglected in that government has not provided black businesses with the opportunity to develop so that blacks can get jobs themselves. On the other hand, we're concerned about cases where Chamber of Commerce, particularly like in Montgomery, Alabama, opposed Ford Motor Company locating an assembly plant here, which would have provided more jobs, but on the grounds that it would raise the cost for other businesses in the community. I think this is a concern that we have. These same people who would oppose the location of a Ford Motor plant here are the same people who would oppose handing out, say, a check to someone on welfare. Well, a man, every able-bodied man who can, ought to work, and every able-bodied man ought to be given the opportunity to work. But a man cannot work if the leaders, the establishment, people in government will oppose the location of industry into Montgomery just for a few people to maintain a stranglehold, say, on the city of Montgomery.
Well, let's clarify one point. Are you saying then that there is a deliberate attempt to keep black economic opportunities down, or do you think that there is just not an awareness of the fact that blacks need economic opportunities?
I would rather say that these persons are totally insensitive to the needs of the black community in this regard. Another area that I would be concerned about is the lack of government help in bringing in government programs. I believe really, and in fact I would prefer to see a man working on a government job than to be given a check. I think that if necessary, given the two, the government ought to create jobs so people can go to work every day and work, rather than having to sit around home with nothing to do.
The white response to that is that there are plenty of jobs really available, menial as they may be, but those jobs would in fact give a person a sense of pride in at least going to work every day and working hard and bringing home a minimum wage. What about that?
I pass by the unemployment office frequently, and I don't know what's causing it, but I can see a lot of black men standing outside of that unemployment office unable to find jobs. And I wish those folks who knew about these jobs, or those folks who know about these jobs rather, would really let the office know about them, because right now as I see it, and I go by that frequently, and I see a line of men standing out there waiting to work. So apparently the jobs do not exist.
Well, at the same time, there are want ads in the newspapers, and there are jobs available at the employment service.
Usually these are for engineers. There's a sparsity of engineers, period, black and white. These are jobs where many blacks cannot fill. And I'm talking about jobs where every man, all the way up the strata, vertical strata, top to bottom, can get a job and can take care of his family. So no child will go to bed hungry at night.
And hope to have a career out of it.
This is correct.
Well, do you see any hope in the future? For example, now, let me get into this issue just briefly. The Head Start centers, the daycare centers, items that would free people to work rather than stay home and receive welfare. Do you see this as a hope?
Well, at one time there was some hope, but of course these programs are being cut back, and of course this is soft money, as I like to call it, meaning that it may be around for a while, it may not. I think these are helpful. But on the other hand, we need some way where there are programs where men and women can work every day and not work on soft money, where they are not concerned about from day to day whether the program is going to be refunded. But a program where we know, like you and I know, that man will have a job day in and day out. So he can plan. He can plan for a home. He can plan for whatever the needs of his family will be. But right now, with the soft money, with these soft money jobs, they may be in this week, they may be out next week. And basically, establishments don't want to make credit to these people because they know that these people will not be able to pay. Look at the foreclosures we've had recently in many homes. It's because people had soft money jobs primarily. And these are concerns that we have, and I think once we get a government, once we get a Chamber of Commerce, once we get people in leadership positions sensitive to these problems, sensitive to the needs, that every able-bodied man who wants to work, and I say man, I'm talking about women too, every person who wants to work can work, but give that man the opportunity to work, and that opportunity is being denied.
All right, extending that point a little bit further, the opportunity to work. Let's take the school children. We were talking earlier about the fact that some school children feel disillusionment that perhaps they can become teachers but can't become principals. Would you explain what you feel about that?
Oh yes, as I said earlier, one of the main concerns, and now we experience it every day, is that many blacks are no longer, say, training for administration because he feels now there's no hope to be an administrator. Take Montgomery, Alabama, where there's not a single black principal in Montgomery. The black child must realize and must feel that he can become a head football coach too. He can become a head basketball coach. He can become a bandmaster. He can become a counselor. He can become a superintendent. He can become whatever it is, even in education. So now if we know if children in education are somewhat disturbed, then we know about those who are not in education. Because for a long time, it was felt that education was the ladder by which the blacks could travel up, up, and up. But now, that ladder is being jerked from underneath.
Do you feel that the situation is worse than it was, say, 5 years ago?
Without doubt, it's worse. It's far worse. And one of the things that's happened, we also have a dropout rate, and that disturbs me. And I think, no question about it, the dropout rate is much higher today, percentage-wise, with blacks than it was, say, 5 years ago. And the thing that troubles me, that many of these students who are dropping out, we're creating a vacuum in the black leadership, we've created a vacuum in black development, and by these students dropping out of school today, we may very well be talking about putting them on welfare 5 years or 10 years from now. Someone will look around and say, well, why aren't you working? There's nothing for them to do. And we will have created it today, but our children tomorrow will have to pay for it.
Keeping along our central theme of benign neglect, do you feel that, that there is something that the establishment, and I'll call it that just to give it a name, can do to prevent this?
Oh yes, I think that every community, just like we are planning now where homes will be located, we ought to plan also where the community is going to be. What can we do about this segment of the community? Say we got 30% of the population that falls below the high school level. Then we ought to have programs of some kind where these people can work and deal with these the economic problems. So the community ought to have a phase program, like, say, as I said, a person who, say, in the 30% not educated, they would fall in one category. Those others fall in another category. We got to have jobs to fit everyone, not for the engineer, not for the lawyer, not for the doctor, but for everyone, because those persons can take care of themselves. Basically, it's the person below who does not have a spokesman, who does not have a forum, who does not have anyone to speak for him and to try to get something for him. And I think the community, the Chamber of Commerce, the government must provide some kind of program to help these segments of the community reach their place in economic sun.
But your preference would be the establishment of more commercial industrial facilities?
By all means, yes. In fact, I think we ought to really have government again, Chamber of Commerce, ought to go out looking for jobs. Instead of running jobs, keeping jobs out of Montgomery, they ought to be going out looking for jobs so people can work. So no child have to go to bed hungry at night in a land of plenty where we still have families with 3 televisions and 2 cars and this kind of thing, and still children are going to bed hungry at night because of this neglect that the community leaders have not provided.
Joe, thank you very much. Our guest on this segment of Composite has been Joe Reed, who is the chairman of the Alabama Democratic Conference. Apparently, to sum up what Mr. Reed has said, there are problems in the black community. Blacks are not happy. They are perhaps not to the point of civil disturbance as they were 10 years ago, but anybody who thinks that everything's rosy had better think again. We'll be back in a moment. He's going to shoot a little more film. Okay. What about the frustration among black youths who find themselves unable to get jobs, unable to progress, to achieve? Do you feel that the establishment has turned its back on you, so to speak? Is it a neglect, or is it a conscious effort to keep down black people? Turn it off for a second. But the white response to that is that the newspapers are full of job offers, that the employment service has jobs, albeit meaningless and menial, so to speak, but still enough to provide a certain sense of pride and a certain income without the recipient having to be on welfare. Yeah.